is Mark Waid, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast, presented by the Southgate Media Group.
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Krypton Report Pod can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Skype, YouTube, and Instagram.
And if you want to drop us a line, send it to kryptonreportpod@gmail.com.
We are on Patreon under Southgate Media Group.
And our official merch page is tpublic.com. Search Krypton Report.
Now on with the show.
So, Solomon, I told you, who are we going to talk about today? Welcome to Krypton Report. Today's episode is part 2 of our Death of Superman look at. Retrospective, I don't know what you want to call it. Review in context, I guess. We're going to be talking about the 2007 first DC animated film of the ongoing DC animated film line, Superman Doomsday. And I can't do this alone. I have Doomsday enthusiast with me, the Superboy himself, Solomon. Say hi, Solo. And also with me is the great and powerful James.
Yeah, takes a couple of Supermen to stop Doomsday.
Yes, it does.
If you want to survive.
So let's travel back to 2007, 11 years ago. That's a heck of a good chunk of time, This is the year after Superman Returns, the year before The Dark Knight. What are your memories, James, on like the release of this and everything?
Well, at this point in time, in 2007, we were still kind of spaced out in the comic content that we would get. And for having an adaptation of The Death of Superman brought home animated. Sorry. I was pretty excited to watch it. It's one of the most iconic Superman stories there is, The Death of Superman. So it was I was anticipating it a lot. And then with the cast, especially James Marsters playing Lex Luthor, I was pretty excited.
I remember I was in college. I had a friend who, he was not my roommate, but he was a couple rooms down. He had all of the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited DVDs. And I borrowed them all because I had seen all the episodes, but never all of them because of just hit and miss with TV. And I remember when this came out, my brother was working at Blockbuster at the time and brought it back to the dorm because I was roommating with my brother. And I invited my friend down and we all sat and watched it. And it was really exciting because, like you said, there wasn't much content. This was supposed to be a higher level animated film. And it was really interesting just to see that this was the story they picked to kick it off. This is before the continuity films. This was before, at this time, we were getting one a year or one every 2 years? I'm trying to remember. I think it was just one a year.
Yeah, pretty much. So it was I think it was this, and then I think New Frontier was the next one.
Was it New Frontier or was it Gotham Knights?
Well, I know in this one the special features is a sneak peek or the first look at New Frontier.
Okay.
And usually they have the next one in line as the first look. in the special features.
Yep.
It's been that way since the beginning.
You are absolutely correct. So the jump back, this was Superman Doomsday was released September 21st, 2007, with New Frontier being released February 26, 2008. And then Gotham Knights was July 8th, 2008. And then after that, we were starting, that's where kind of it kicked off with the 2 a year, and we won't go down the line, but I remember when New Frontier, was announced as I was excited for that one. Like, after watching this, like, it was really exciting that, man, I have something to look forward to, because at this time, I think, cartoon-wise, I cannot remember if we're in Brave and the Bold or if we're in The Batman. I think we're in The Batman right now. And I didn't have cable or any really, the internet wasn't as amazing as it is today. So I really didn't have any other new kind of, so the Brave and the Bold didn't start till 2008. So I really didn't have much new DC content. All we had was the films and Smallville.
Yeah.
And Smallville later, the next, year, season, 2008, would kick off their Doomsday arc, which didn't include the death of Superman, so we're not going to talk about it. But let's jump into Superman Doomsday and discuss this film. Now, the film, the score, I just want to address, I really like the score, but what's the Superman theme of the film sounds kind of Star Trek-y to me. I don't think that's good or bad. I'm just saying it sounds kind of like Star Trek.
Well, whatever it sounds like to you. I mean, I enjoyed the Superman theme in this. It does sound very heroic.
Yes, it does.
Especially when they play it every time he does something really, really heroic, and he's, they start playing that music, and, you just know it's like, Superman's here and he's about to do his thing.
He's going to save the day.
He's going to save the day.
So, I mean, I want to say, first of all, that with this film is like 90, not even, it's like 80 some minutes long. And in this film, they do the entire death and return of Superman. And now, with the book review, we did the death of Superman, and we're going to do the return of Superman next year when the second part of the current continuity film comes out, the return of the Superman, or Reign of the Superman. But this film, a little bit of spoilers just because, we are going to talk about the idea of the whole story, since this particular film does try to cover the entire story in one film.
In about 75 minutes.
So, with that said, we're going to jump in more right to the film. The film opens with a narration from Lex Luthor. And like you said, it's James Marsters. Now, if you're like, who's James Marsters? Well, let me tell you. James Marsters played Smallville's version of Brainiac that first appeared in season 5, but he's most famous for playing Spike on Buffy and Angel. And he was the one I was hoping to meet last year at the Columbus WizardCon, but he was unable to make the Columbus date, and I was sad.
Oh yeah, that's disappointing. Yeah, James Marsters got some pretty good geek cred.
He does. He's a very, very talented actor. I mean, if anyone says anything bad about Smallville season 5, okay, that's kind of like the transition. 5, 6, and 7 are kind of like this third act story arc. If you want to look at the entire series, it's like a three arc structure and a 3-act structure. But he shines in his episodes, and so I highly recommend checking at least a couple of his episodes out. Now, another thing that's interesting about this film is the animation style. It's not too departed from the Bruce Timm animated style that we had become accustomed to.
Yeah. It does have a similar style, the broad shoulders and,
The
barrel-chested hero.
The square edges. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the character models, it's like they took that style and just tweaked it to make it a little bit more smoother and rounder. I mean, even Doomsday that appears in this it's very similar to the Doomsday that appeared in Justice League Unlimited. So that was kind of, as I was watching this, because I rewatched it last night, it was one thing I thought to myself that part of me almost wishes that this film had been in the continuity of the cartoon series. But, of course, Doomsday did appear in the cartoon series. But could you imagine if they would have done that with, like, Tim Daly voicing Superman and Clancy Brown as Lex? And, because also something to point out in this film, there are no other heroes in this film other than Superman himself.
Yeah.
So it's a very much an isolated Superman story.
Yeah, and Adam Baldwin does the voice for Superman in this film, and I mean, he does a decent job. He definitely does. I mean, there's not much to complain about from his voiceover, but it's not as iconic as Tim Daly or George Newbern.
And I agree. It wasn't bad. It was different because George Newbern has a very similar to Tim Daly, where you could kind of get the two mixed up at times or not notice that it's switched unless you were really used to hearing it. Mm-hmm. So to hear Superman talking to be someone different at this time really was a shocker because we hadn't had any other really incarnations of Superman. Animated, that is, so it was a big deal to hear some other voice coming out. Now, Adam Baldwin, probably most famous for being Jane Cobb on Firefly and Serenity the film, would later voice Hal Jordan on the Injustice games.
I didn't realize that. I'm gonna have to make sure to check that out. Listen for that next time.
I like him better as Hal Jordan. I'll be honest. I can't really like specify or go like into deep like this is why I do.
Well, there's a certain voice that characters have, a certain personality that characters have, and even in most of his live action portrayals, his voice and his character, his mannerisms, he's never really been as straight-laced, even in his military roles, he's never been as straight-laced or he just doesn't seem to have the voice he's not the first person you'd picture to voice Superman.
Exactly. But once again, he didn't do a bad job.
Oh, no, not at all. He definitely stepped up.
So that's the first kind of like, and then one thing is looking at the animation, the way they draw like the lines on his face to kind of give his cheek definition, to me kind of makes him look older, like almost like old wrinkles. It kind of threw me off the first time I watched it, to be honest.
Oh, I still look at those lines on his face and like, sure, it kind of highlights his cheekbones and everything, but, it really, the line straight down, try and make his face look, I don't know, saggy or something. It always throws me even to this day. Most people have their smile lines, above their mouth and to the outside, but they're certainly not like way off the cheekbones all the way out to the side. That's like Jack Nicholson Joker lines on there.
Yeah, exactly. So now that we keep trying to get into the movie, but we're kind of setting the stage, for the feel. Because I think part of that is a big deal with this is that it feels familiar, yet it's something different at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. The film, like I said, starts off with Lex and doing a voiceover. And, we see that we see Clark first before we see Superman. And I think that's important. Because once you introduce Superman, he stays Superman. There's not really a back and forth. So
yeah, the movie's so jam packed. There's not as much time to go back and forth between the characters of him being Clark around other people. Once he becomes, like you said, Superman, the only interaction with anybody that he has is Lois. So, and even in this movie, she knows who he is, but he refuses to tell her for her own safety and to keep a distance between them.
Which I will say is kind of idiotic. Because she even says she puts herself in harm's way anyways. So, Superman, people realizing Superman and Lois, it's not really gonna affect her much more than things already have.
Right. I would say Superman always saves Lois anyway. So, either she's a target or she's somebody you want to avoid because you don't want interference with Superman.
So, yeah, exactly. And we see that Clark is going to Afghanistan on a reporting assignment, and we find out that Lois is actually going to the fortress to spend time with Superman. Now, I was watching this last night with Jania, and we were watching the scene where we see Lex, and he's talking to his assistant, and he mentions that he found a way to cure muscular dystrophy. And that to give the information over to his scientist team and basically find a way to slow it down to make it a lifelong treatment. And then, juxtaposed with that, it's Superman in the fortress trying to find a way to cure cancer. And he says, he names off accomplishments that he's done, but he can't find a way to stop human cells from metastasizing. And he comments to his robot, which I don't know if they ever name it, but I just called it Kelex because that's a robot he's used before in the fortress. He mentions that a lot of times the people in power don't have the people's best interest and what's good for people. And I just thought that was really powerful. Yeah. How we see, Lex and Superman are both working towards something, and Lex, is going for profit and power, and Superman really just wants to help people with all his
Superman
skills.
Superman wants to find a cure for these things, whereas Lex Luthor, he already has cures for stuff. He has scientists working to find cures and then making those cures into treatments. So it's a lifelong profit instead of just eliminating the problem altogether and helping people.
Which, it shows, the similarities and differences between them. And Superman follows up his line with, it would be nice to not be Earth's residential strongman, which in this film is kind of what he is. Doomsday is not something you kind of beat as much with your brain as much as you try. So, skipping ahead, we see that Doomsday that is basically Lex has people on Project Apple Core drilling to the center of the earth to find a new way of making some sort of power, energy. And they find Doomsday's prison. And, it's cracked, and an alien appears and basically is a warning. And Lex is watching on a live feed. And I found this just kind of interesting that Doomsday just punches out one time and busts out. Like, we don't get that, like in the comic, that ramp up of this fist hitting a wall. Doomsday breaks out, no containment suit, just kind of the boots and the shorts.
Right.
And just starts killing everybody there.
Yeah. Well, they mentioned that they're like 2 miles underneath the surface of the earth. And then they discover the prison, which is, it's pretty cool that they use the element of the containment, the prison, crash landed on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, and it's that deep underground.
Yes.
So, and instead of like the pounding, the fist breaking out to kind of give that, like you said, that ramp up, they get Lex on that live feed so that way he can like observe what they have found, and they puncture the side with their drilling laser. And as the cryo prison, as it would seem, starts to hiss and blow out, that's when they give that ominous alien warning, and Lex is the one who realizes, that it's a warning. So with they kind of give a bit of that with that hiss going on, and then that warning, and then it's just all bad from there, which I kind of like it reminded me watching it. It reminded me of the end shot of Krypton,
yes.
When Doomsday is frozen in that thing, and then he wakes up and just punches through the window.
That I totally agree. I totally agree with that.
I kind of wonder if they didn't get some of that idea for that shot from this movie.
I mean, it would kind of make sense if it did, This movie, like we said, it's been around long enough. So we cut back. Excuse me. Been a long day. So we see Clark, or actually, I'm sorry. I gotta make sure I talk clearly. We see Kal-El.
After we see Doomsday destroy it and kill everybody.
In the fortress. And with Lois. And they're talking and they're arguing. She says, I want to call you something more than Superman. And he says, my name is Kal-El. She gets frustrated. And they're talking. And, during this, we cut back and we see Doomsday some more. He kills a bear, which is kind of a callback, or a deer. I can't even read my own writing. Callback to the book. We see him as he's walking. We see him crash a semi-truck. Kind of a callback to the book. There's some death and destruction as he makes his way. He breaks up and busts up some trees.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal as he's making his way. When he grabs that deer, like he tackles the deer. They don't show it, but
the sound effect.
They have the snap of it.
And, Superman then is going to tell Lois some things, and Kellex shows up and says he's needed, and he says he pulled the file from archives of Jor-El, had recorded and talks a little bit about this killing machine, this Doomsday killing machine that couldn't decipher friend from foe. And we see that Doomsday is about in the metropolis. The military is mounting, and they're firing and attacking him with, he's just plowing through them. He chucks a tank, and that's when Superman shows up. Stops the tank.
Oh, it's pretty sweet is when Doomsday's, destroying everything across the bridge and the military shows up. There's a pretty awesome scene of them firing things at Doomsday and Doomsday destroying a whole bunch of stuff. But the tank shows up, and when the tank fires a shell at him, at Doomsday, Doomsday collides with his fist, explodes the shell with his fist, and it doesn't even faze him. He just continues to rampage and smash people and things in his way. I always love that shot of him punching that tank shell.
I mean, it just shows that how powerful Doomsday is. Like, he's scary. You know what I'm saying? In a sense, like, Superman sees what's going on. And, you can tell, like, even Superman is a little scared, you know? Because nothing seems to be stopping him. When Superman shows up, one of the first things he does is he uses his freeze breath, which is awesome, and he doesn't do enough of that.
Well, he freezes him solid, and then he shatters it and continues down with his downward sledge with his two fists. And, like, Superman is stunned that when he hits him, like, how much of an impact he has, and, you know, puts Superman's feet down into the ground, shatters the street underneath him.
And that is just a demonstration of how powerful Doomsday is. And I think it shakes Superman. You know, you can see it. He's scared, you know, like, this is him going at it. And Lois, meanwhile, has Jimmy in a helicopter, and they're taking pictures. She's telling Jimmy, eyes on the action. Keep the camera on the action. And, you know, there's one point where Doomsday jumps really high, catches the helicopter, tries to break it. Superman, you know, saves it. And the two just keep, I mean, they're just, you know, throwing each other into buildings and all this, and just really going at it hard. And it's the kind of destruction, like I've said to you before, like, this is kind of like, this level of destruction is like what we saw in Man of Steel, a Superman versus Zod.
Mm-hmm.
When it should have been Superman versus Doomsday, should have been on this kind of a scale.
Yeah, a big knockdown, just a knockdown, drag out brawl of nothing but, you know, collateral damage in the way.
And one thing to point out is there's not a lot of people around. Really, you don't see any people other than Lois and Jimmy until they fall into, like, the subway. And there's a really cool subway scene of them fighting. And what you do is it shows, like, the surface. And there's people standing, and then all of a sudden you just see these, like, raising, like, almost like reverse pothole looking things, and the two bust up through it.
Yeah. There's a scene where Superman kind of flies at Doomsday and knees him in the face, and kind of rocks him and sends his head backwards. And after he knees him, he kind of flips over him and grabs him by the jaw.
That's one of my favorite parts in the whole thing.
Throws him and sends him flying through a building, and then he chases him down at supersonic speeds, and the sonic boom actually shatters the windows as Lex Luthor is looking on.
Now we also see, you're talking about Lex Luthor looking on, we also see that this is being covered, and we have Martha at home alone watching it. Now, there's no Jonathan in this. We can only assume that he's already dead. But in the comics at this time, as we talked about last time, Martha and Jonathan were watching together. And we have this scene with the lost little girl, and Doomsday's going after the little girl, and Superman's got to take him down. And he grabs him and just takes off into space, into the air. And I've always said that, you know what? If I was Superman and I was fighting Doomsday, I would fly him out of the Earth's atmosphere and just chuck him into space. and just let him float away. And what does Superman do in this? What does he do, James?
He flies him into space, and then he turns right around and brings him down for a pile driver back to Earth.
And boom. Now, I was sitting there thinking, like, the two of them at that velocity, could that be an extinction level event?
You know, it very well could be. I mean, we've seen other things of Superman just falling to Earth, not actually like creating that added inertia, his extra speed, that much mass, that fast. I mean, we've seen him crash down to Earth and send a shockwave and make a small crater and, tons of dirt and dust flying around. But I mean, at this speed, you could think that it would level, a few city blocks at the very least, which it looks like it does.
And then I kind of feel cheated because that's how Doomsday dies. Yeah, Doomsday died. That's what we're left with. That is, like, we see the basically the lights go out in Doomsday's eyes, and they're not detailed.
Yeah, because in this
like in
one,
the book,
in this movie, he's like a genetically engineered machine. They show through his eyes a couple of times, and it's like it's like looking through the eyes of a Terminator or something.
That's very true. Good observation. And so, then we have like Lois running to Superman, and Superman, is laying there, and basically, she says that he did it, he stopped him, and Superman says that's all that matters. And he dies. We are 28 minutes into the movie, and the fight with Doomsday is over. We have more than half the movie left to go. I just want to point that out. For a movie called Superman Doomsday, it holds more than Doomsday in the title as the character and just what it means, a Doomsday event of his death and what that means to him. So I want to point out, as we segue into the middle section of this film, that I actually really like this version of Lois. I enjoy what they've done with this character, and probably my favorite scene in this film actually is coming up, because we get the funeral, and as they're leaving the funeral, Lois notices Martha Kent. And Lois already had her suspicions because she pointed out earlier that Clark goes on an assignment to Afghanistan, and then that's when her and Superman disappear together. And Jimmy gets a job offer from basically like a celebrity sleaze tabloid magazine.
Yep, Jimmy becomes a paparazzi photographer.
From Pulitzer to Pavarazzi Man. And it's the scene that I like is Lois drives to Smallville to meet Martha. Now, Martha has not met Lois, or vice versa,
or doesn't know that. She's not dating Clark per se, because they haven't made, he hasn't revealed that to her.
Lois drives and confronts Martha, and Martha says, "Is there any word from Clark from Afghanistan?" And Lois basically says, "You know that your son died in Metropolis last week." And Martha's whole demeanor shifts to a very cold threat, like, "You are threatening my family." And then Lois breaks down and says, "I'm not here as a reporter. I want to talk to someone who knew him, who loved him, who knew what it was like to be loved by him." And, and she just like loses it. And Martha just has this like look on her face, that she just all of a sudden feels excited. And Lois and Clark, when Clark, in season 2, I believe. Yeah, season 2 or 3. Crap, I'm forgetting. When basically, Lois, Clark introduces like Lois to his parents in the sense of she knows my secret and everything about me. And like Martha having the sense to finally talk to somebody about her son. To share with things about her son with somebody. Because she's never been able to really talk about Clark with anybody. And that's kind of the really unique bond between Lois and Martha. And we get a little bit of that here.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite scene in the middle, post death of Superman.
So the next kind of change up is we see what I like to call Gothic Toyman. Because we have Toyman, who's like a very gothic punk looking guy, in a giant metal spider terrorizing some children in a school bus. And this to me is a great example of Lois, because Lois goes to the roof, gets on the bus, sneaks the children off, while Toyman is not paying attention, knowing good and well that Superman's not coming that could save her. She's just doing what she does. And Toyman, Lois saves a bunch of kids, and Toyman attacks her and throws the bus, and then all of a sudden, Superman catches it. But before that, we see a fist come popping out of Superman's grave, and he catches the bus. And then what's funny is we have a person on the street voiced by Kevin Smith, who looks like Kevin Smith, who says a mechanical spider. And
we really needed him to save us.
If anyone knows the whole story behind him writing Superman Lives and John Peters wanting a mechanical spider that was later called a Thanagarian Star Beast, it's a hilarious inside joke. But
yeah.
Our first thought that this really isn't Superman is he's taking Lois, but he passes Lois's apartment. Lois gives him a kiss, and he has no action towards it. And then Martha sees this on TV, and we learn that Superman is back, but there's been no activity of Clark Kent. And what we discover in this scene is that Lex Luthor stole Superman's body and cloned him with a little bit of the blood that was lost in the battle against Doomsday. And that he's basically programmed this to be his Superman. And we see him in a very psychotic scene that he is beating Superman down with kryptonite gloves and red solar lamp.
Yeah, depowering him and then beating him, with basically kryptonite knuckles. The one thing you can say about this movie is, it was definitely a step up, the brutality in this movie. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that happen, when Doomsday finally gets released, there's very little blood in this movie whatsoever, but, after Doomsday's released, everybody he comes across, there's bones cracking, when he hits people, basically, he smashes them into the ground and they're just nothing. They're covered by a pile of rubble. He grabs somebody's head and he crushes it. The fight between Superman and Doomsday was pretty brutal. Him punching Superman deeper and deeper into the wall, just punching him in his face. And then, Lex Luthor there pounding on Superman. And then even something else that Lex Luthor does here coming up. They definitely took a step up to make it more adult. than the cartoons ever were, than the syndicated shows ever were.
I agree. And that's why it feels almost a little odd, because it does feel so much similar to, like, just looking at the animation and everything, to what we had seen before. So that's, interesting that it is more brutal. It is more graphic. And were we prepared for this? We didn't know what we were going to get in this film. Being the first of its kind. Yes, it's rated PG-13. But we didn't know what to expect.
Right. So Lois is getting more and more curious that Superman isn't Superman. He's not seeing her, spending time with her. Martha hasn't seen him since he's come back. And then she shows Jimmy the picture of him standing with Lex Luthor on the front of the newspaper. She's
like, yeah, something doesn't seem right.
Pretty much. So, and then we get after we already know that Lex Luthor has the body and everything, but we get a definitive scene that this Superman doesn't have the same moral compass as Clark does when he sees that Toyman had escaped custody and killed a young girl. And that did not sit very well with this Superman.
No, it did not. And the other thing about it is, we see that Lex makes a comment that he could just stop and destroy him, and this Superman walks into a beauty shop, uses his X-ray vision and heat combination in a mirror, and basically carves out a little bomb detonation of kryptonite that Lex had put in his brain.
Yeah. So I'd say right before that, because it's after he goes and takes Toyman, who's in police custody, and flies him up above the buildings and drops him to his death. So that is definitely confirmation to Lois and Jimmy that Superman is not who he claims to be. And after that, Lex Luthor is definitely disappointed, because he is not being Superman.
No, he's not being his adversary. We got to point out, Lex Luthor feels cheated that he's not the one that brought Superman's destruction, that he's not the one that, caused everything.
And all his, he's very disappointed in all his years of planning that he wasn't the one who was able to kill Superman.
So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic that he feels. And now, where it really picks up is we learn, and I wrote down the math, that Superman's body is stolen from Lex, and we learn that it's stolen by Kelex and put in the fortress. And to quote what he says, when Superman / Cal wakes up, Kelex says, after 17 days, I heard basically a pulse from Superman. He said, but then it took another 17 days for another one till I could locate you. Your vitals had basically gone to a crawl so that your body could heal. So that, that puts Superman dead for at least 34 days. A good solid month plus. And so during this time, Superman's now in the fortress, basically healing. We see him working out, doing his weight machine thing. And, trying to build up his strength while this new Superman's going crazy.
Yeah, there's a scene of him in a Bacta tank, and then a scene of him under a bunch of solar lights trying to gain some energy. And then, yeah, basically working out. So what I'm curious about is I was doing the math myself, and at least 34 days that he was dead, like his hair grew a lot in a month with him basically, you know, being in a coma.
Exactly. That was some serious hair growth to a mullet.
I know.
You could put it at his body's regenerating, so everything's kind of growing at an accelerated rate. That is my rationale for it.
Right.
I've never been a fan of the long hair on Superman.
I just saw a picture today. I'm not sure if it came from a real comic or if it was just like made to look like a comic, but it was Wonder Woman talking to like really long flowing hair Superman, and it was like, what kind of conditioner do you use?
Kryptonian. Clone Superman. This is after Clone Superman has broken into Lex's lab, found all the other clones. I mean, lots of clones of Superman in different stages, and destroyed the lab. Oh, and we almost forgot to mention that Lex asked his assistant if everything was taken care of, to where LexCorp was never there at the site of Doomsday's arrival. She says yes, and then he shoots her in the head. Like, dead on.
Yeah, that's another one of those really dark moments. Like, once she says it's all done, you know, like it was never there. Yeah, he pulls a gun on her, and they don't show it. You know, it's something that they steered clear of in these early movies. But yeah, it was very evident that he put a bullet in her head. Eliminate every single trace, anybody who had any knowledge of the project.
I remember watching it the first time and just being like, wow, like it went there.
And yeah, I mean that seems to be like Mercy.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I put her as my notes, but I was never sure if that's who she was.
I'm not positive. I'm gonna have to I've been kind of watching this on like double speed as we're talking about it since I just finished it before we got on. So just to kind of go with it as we're talking about it, but I want to get to the credits. I'm going to check and see if they list her name.
So we have Superman battling clone Superman. And, you know, new Superman shows up. New Superman. But the real Superman shows up, and he puts on a black solar suit that's supposed to help absorb the sun's energy to help him fight the clone. And, you know, he shows up and he has a kryptonite cannon with him that he got, that he had stolen from Lex before. And everyone's like shocked to see, you know, this Superman in a black costume. And he just starts fighting with the clone. And I've
with
never
long hair. Jimmy even calls him, who's the rocker?
And I'm not a huge fan of the black suit. I understand its importance, but I've never been a huge black suit fan for Superman. But
yeah.
It's cool.
I mean, like the black suit with the cape, like in Man of Steel, you know, kind of cool, but like if they were to ever do like the black suit in a movie or something, I mean, I would hope that they would do something a little more like this. No cape, you know, kind of.
Yeah.
Just
there's a version of the black suit in Lois and Clark. There's a black suit in the comic book, ironically titled Lois and Clark. So, I mean, the black suit kind of has its place. And we see the two start fighting. And we know that real Superman's at 67%. And the two of them just start going at it. And then eventually Lois kind of realizes, hey, That's him. Because he drops the kryptonite cannon, Lois goes and gets it. One of my favorite parts is Lex is trying to lure the clone Superman to fight him in his red solar room. And the clone just shuts the door, rips the room out, because it's a lead-based room, and throws it.
Yeah, that was, and after that, I mean, like, they're not even sure if he's alive.
Yeah, we're not even sure if he's alive. We don't even know.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but somebody says that, somebody says something about believing that Lex Luthor is dead. Wish I could remember who said it, but I didn't get that part down. But the fight between Superman and Superman, the clone, is a pretty intense fight as well. Not as brutal as the fight against Doomsday. But they're causing some damage. Lots of property damage, and the clone is trying to eliminate Superman, that he believes that Metropolis is his to protect now. But there is one scene there where the long hair for Black Suit Superman is no good when the clone grabs him by his hair from two sides of his head and keeps kneeing him in the face.
I mean, could you imagine being Superman? Like, you're dead from the biggest beating you've ever had. You wake up, and we don't know how long he's awake for, and then you're right back at another, like, brawling fight.
Right.
So, I find it interesting that Clone Superman picks up the giant Superman symbol that was in the Memorial Park. And, he's flying, and what we didn't see is Black Suit Superman, the real Superman, put a cartridge from the laser cannon of kryptonite on him, uses his heat vision to explode it, and the clone is basically destroyed by the weight of being Superman.
Yeah.
He pops up and he says one thing about, protect the city. And it's kind of crazy because, he did have an intention, but he was, like, twisted. Almost more Bizarro-like.
Right.
And then one thing we forgot to mention earlier was after Superman dies, there's, like, an interview of different people. And a little boy says, last year I went as Superman for Halloween. I'm going to go as him again every year. And then we see that little boy again in the park, and Lois makes a comment about, it's going to be a little bit for them to trust you again. And we see that little boy come walking out and goes, are you going to keep the black suit or go back to the blue? And, like, just kind of hugs Superman, and, like, everyone comes over and starts shaking his hand because they realize it's the real Superman.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't think that people will trust him again, and Lois says they will. Just give it time, and then it's like a second later the boy's there.
Exactly. And it's the perfect kind of, like, Superman as the hero to little children. And so, that we see Lex Luthor is in the hospital, like in the bed, like in cast and in traction and everything, kind of talking to himself. He's in a twisted way happy Superman's back. But I mean, that's the film. And one thing we didn't touch on is, in the book, and we're getting there, and we don't want to get too far ahead in our discussion, but when Reign of Superman comes out, we won't be talking about this film again. We'll probably reference it. But, the idea of how to return Superman, we have the clone, which is Superboy, which is the first version of Superboy that wasn't a young version of Clark. And then we have the Eradicator, and we have Cyborg Superman. And I bring up those three because this evil clone Superman that's in this story is kind of an amalgam of those three.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I had a problem with this when I initially watched it, is because they didn't do the funeral for a friend, like anything from that storyline, you know, and then they didn't do like a Reign of the Superman type thing. They just did this very odd, pseudo-original Return of Superman story with an evil clone. And I wasn't really happy with it when I first saw it. And now I've come to be like, okay, I can appreciate it for what it is, but I don't know, I would have preferred a little bit more of a faithful adaptation of the Return of Superman. It felt, for as strong as the story is, it felt a little bit more surface for most of it to me. Like the emotions and everything wasn't there as it should have been.
Right. Well, they did condense, I mean, like you said, they did a really good job of making it an original story. You know, adapting what they could from the death and return of Superman. And that's the only thing that's made so many of these DC animated features suffer, is the runtime.
Yes.
Not only with this one did they use so much material and condense it down so much, but also that shorter runtime, you know, kind of forces you to get certain things right into the forefront, you know?
I mean, we're about to have, you know, the death of Superman and then Reign of the Supermen. And that's the last time we had a two-parter was when they did The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2.
Yeah. Which was an excellent adaptation, and that's a direct adaptation, from book to animation. But the death of Superman and Reign of Superman is an adaptation into the current continuity. So there are certain changes that they made, which we'll get to when we record that soon.
And I mean, that's like when we were discussing, you know, Hush, about will Hush be continuity or not. But we're going to put a pin in this discussion now. As we
two things. The last two scenes that we missed for the end of the movie after the Trust Superman. Superman and Lois are together in Lois's apartment, and he finally reveals to her that he is Clark Kent. Says that he was the Smallville Elementary Spelling Bee champion, and he puts his glasses on. She gives him a big kiss and tells him, and in the credits as I'm looking right now, it does say Mercy Graves.
So Lex kills Mercy again.
Killed her 9 years before he did it again.
So that brings the conversation to an end for our Superman Doomsday as our second part of our 3-part Death of Superman.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Krypton Report. You can also email us at kryptonreportpod@gmail.com. If you get a chance to go over to iTunes, please leave us a review to help us get better. If you're an Amazon shopper, just remember you can go to southgatemediagroup.com. There's a portal, log into Amazon, and you'll shop into your account just regular, but it also helps keep all the podcasts on and helps keep Southgate running. Remember, look up in the sky.